So, what to say about Kenobi Episode 3? Well, after two fairly good and above average episodes, we now finally have a genuinely great episode. I give this an 8.25. Pretty astonishing on most levels. The weak areas, though, do stand out. Some of the plot contrivances were a little bit problematic. The chase scenes, as always, because again, they have a much smaller budget, are okay. They're kind of functional. And the music at places was underwhelming. But at other places, it was really strong. So it was a little bit all over the place. But the standouts are the performances. The writing is a lot stronger than the first two episodes. And the directing is pretty spot on. Although I do think there was a few issues with the editing, especially when Vader came in towards the end with his very awesome, although perhaps anticlimactic fight scene with Kenobi. So what is going on? So they've escaped from Riva temporarily from the first two episodes and are on and have to be careful and act undercover. And I think the chemistry with Kenobi and Leia is a lot stronger than was in the first two episodes. There's a lot of appropriate and very nice little allusions to the prequels, to Padme, Revenge of the Sith, and some other Easter eggs. If you like Star Wars with the comics and novels, there's going to be some extra stuff that you're going to pick up on, which I thought was integrated fairly seamlessly without upsetting the main story. And Vader returning with a lot of glory, I thought was very well done, and I think it was a good decision to be understated. A lot of people wanted to be much more full on, have him just destroy everything, and I thought it would make sense that he's been in pain for a long time. So for him, he is going to be excited to hunt Kenobi and be much more central to the hunt, but he is still suffering a lot from his wounds and pains, and he's been mulling over this for a long time. It's a lot of interesting fire imagery that they're borrowing from Revenge of the Sith, which made sense, and if you do know Star Wars comics, this is one of his fantasies to have Obi-Wan burn. But probably the weaker point here is the subplot with Reva and the Inquisitors. Like, most of what they do makes sense, but the fact that the Grand Inquisitor's alleged death, we don't know if he's really dead, but the way he was harmed is kind of just skimmed over. It seems like they're aware she did it, and that Kenobi doing it was a cover story. They're all aware it's a lie, but they don't press her on it. It makes sense that Vader doesn't care about this, but I thought it was weird the other two Inquisitors don't take revenge, or at least don't try something more directly. That felt a little bit too convenient. But Vader is pretty appropriately ruthless when he attacks a town and when he confronts Kenobi personally. A lot of people wanted it to be much more verbose, but again, if we follow the original trilogy, Vader doesn't talk that much. He never did. He's verbose as Anakin, and maybe when we're going to do more extended flashbacks, that'll come in. But Vader, onto himself, is a bit laconic. He's not supposed to be talking a huge amount. He's supposed to let his actions speak, and I think he did a lot of great action towards the end. But again, this is working with the television budget, so certain parts of it are like it could have looked better. They could have spent more time on the CGI, lighting, and so on and so forth could have been improved. But again, given this is his official return within the canon, I thought it mostly worked pretty well. It didn't seem to violate anything from the canon too much. I did note one little plot contrivance, which may be explained later, maybe won't be, that Kenobi is burned, but his face seems okay. That could just be the will of the Force, which is canonical, that the Force has its kind of own agency and its will within the universe, so maybe he was saved a little bit. This also happened in the prequels when he was being shot at with Django. For instance, he's shot at with a missile, but his robes don't burn. He does seem to have fire immunity throughout the entire prequel trilogy and then the original trilogy. For whatever reason, certain objects or certain things don't hurt Kenobi. That's just how it is. Don't know why. He just has certain immunity from certain things for whatever reason. And Leia was a little bit less annoying than she was in the other episodes. So I think maybe the actress and Ewan McGregor just got to know each other a lot better. So that felt way more naturalistic than it was before. And Anakin makes a kind of surprising, interesting, but brief cameo. I thought that was very well done. So again, a lot of moments were understated. I know people wanted something a little bit more dramatic. They have sort of set up a very big expectation now then when the real confrontation happens between Obi and Vader, that'll be a really huge epic battle. But I didn't think it was too ridiculous that Vader, quote, let Kenobi go, even though he could have, in principle, killed him. It just makes sense that he wants him to suffer and suffer a very, very long time like he did. But he's kind of torn up because he is responsible for what happened. You can sort of see he's still got a very fractured psyche, so I thought it made enough sense. But of course, you could nitpick that he could have been more active, he could have done more. Maybe he could have burned or destroyed certain body parts, and that would still work with the original trilogy. It would explain a little bit like why Obi moves the way he does, why he talks the way he does. But also, we have to remember that Vader actually moved really, really slow in the original trilogy. So presumably, I'm guessing Kenobi is going to come back and do a very, very epic defeat against Vader and going to diminish his powers a little bit, and that will hook up to the original trilogy. But we'll have to wait and see. But I think they did a really, really good half season so far. But they may screw it up, but so far, so good with Kenobi, episode 3.